Well, the format for this evening is pretty straightforward. We're going to ask our 5 participants to stick to it. You know, presidential leadership is sometimes, occasionally about following rules. If we want to get everyone in during the hour and a half, we need to do that tonight and still have a couple of questions for each. But we're going to ask them to stick, each of you to stick to 8 minutes with your remarks on revitalizing the economy, government spending, budget deficits, debt, etc., job creation. We'll have some, now I'm a liberal arts major from Virginia Tech, so we have a high-tech system here. At 1 minute, you'll see a yellow flashing light. It means caution, right? There it is, right there, it's working. Good to know we've got our engineers back there. And at time for each speaker, it'll go red. So we're going to ask our speakers to stay within that. We'll then have 2 questions on the same economic topics for each, and then that'll be it for the evening. So thank you all for joining us. We have the first speaker this evening, and that's Governor Tim Pawlenty from Minnesota. Governor?
Thank you very much. Or as President Obama would say, you're welcome. You had enough of $4 a gallon gas? Yeah. You had enough of unbearable levels of unemployment? Yeah. You had enough of a federal government that is out of control? Yes. You had enough of Barack Obama? Yes. Yeah, me too. Thank you for being here tonight under the banner of Americans for Prosperity. Ovid, thank you for inviting us and being honored tonight along with Betty for your tremendous work, your role modeling of service, of faith and family and dedication and persistence to this state and the cause of freedom is a clarion call to New Hampshire and to all of America, and we owe you a debt of gratitude. Thank you again, Ovid. Senator DeMint, thank you for your inspiring leadership in the United States Senate. You are a clear voice for common sense, and there's not much of that in Washington, and you're the leader of that tremendous movement. Thank you, Senator DeMint, for coming tonight. We appreciate it. I'm delighted to be here with the other potential candidates in 2012, Michelle Bachmann and my good friend Mitt Romney and Herman Cain and Rick Santorum and the others. These are all wonderful people. We're all going to be on the same team because we have the same goal, and that's taking back this country and restoring America to its greatness again. The question before us is about jobs and the economy and government spending, and to answer that question, we should go talk to the people who actually provide the jobs in this country. And when you do, they give you a pretty clear answer every day, all day, real loudly, real clearly, real consistently. And it's not that complicated. And it's this: get the government off my back. So it varies a little bit by industry or business or employer or sector. But some, of course, are very concerned about taxes being too high. Others are concerned about regulation and the time and expense and delay of getting a permit. Others, of course, are worried about energy costs that are skyrocketing. Others are worried about workers' comp or unemployment insurance comp or unfair rules that tilt the playing field towards the unions. Others are worried about abusive lawsuit system. But the common message is every time government extends itself and pushes into an area and crowds out an entrepreneur, a dreamer, a designer, an innovator, somebody who would take a risk, somebody who would start something, grow something, add employees, build buildings, buy equipment, commercialize it, conduct research, do all the things it takes to keep a private sector economy going. Every time government pushes in and takes another piece of that over, they not only grow government, they not only grow budgets, they not only spend more money, of your money, but they do something else that's equally corrosive. They discourage the American spirit. Underneath this notion of America's greatness and America's prosperity is what makes us great is that we're free. And is fundamentally different than many other cultures around the world, across the globe and throughout time. We're not the greatest nation the world's ever known because we have the most people in the world. We don't. We need to be more competitive with our costs, but we're clearly not the cheapest place in the world. We're the greatest nation the world's ever known because we're the freest nation in the world. So Because government pushes into families and neighborhoods and community and places of worship and private markets and entrepreneurs and discourages them and burdens them down and taxes them and slows them down. We need to push back and say, we're taking our country back. And that's what this campaign in 2012 is all about. Now, many of you know that I talk sometimes about Sam's Club Republicans or Costco or Kmart or Walmart. If you go to a store like that, oftentimes you'll see a mom or a dad with a grocery cart. They've got a year's supply of Doritos or toilet paper in their cart. Because of why? They're trying to save a little money because they don't have more money. They're trying to get the best value for the money they do have. They want that from their government as well, and they're not getting it. We've got a government in Washington, D.C. that was fighting recently about whether to spend $3.656 trillion or $3.7 trillion. Problem was they were only taking in $2.2 trillion. We need to fundamentally change this country, and the spending issue in Minnesota, one of the bluest states in the Union. Mitt and I used to debate each other whether Massachusetts or Minnesota was more liberal. But, you know, they voted for Ronald Reagan twice. Minnesota never did. We've changed my state. We took spending and brought it below zero for the first budget cycle in 150-year history. We cut taxes net over my 8 years as governor. We were one of the first states in the country to have performance pay for teachers statewide. We had pension reform. I took one of the largest transit strikes with the bus drivers in the history of the country, shut down the entire transit system for 44 days, had people standing outside my bedroom window with signs saying, "Valenti's a weapon of mass transit destruction." We did tort reform, welfare reform, all of the things that people talk about now in Minnesota. I share that with you, not to be immodest, but to say, as Frank Sinatra would sing about New York, if we can do it in the land of Mondale and Humphrey and Wellstone and Ventura and now U.S. Senator Al Franken, we can do it anywhere. Now, it wasn't easy. With all due respect to other folks in public office, some of them need a little encouragement. And pushing them back up against the wall metaphorically matters, and it helps. I had the first government shutdown under my watch in Minnesota in 150-year history of the state. I set a record for vetoes in my state single season, and one of the most in history. I unallotted, using executive authority, more money out of my state's budget in my 8 years as governor than all the previous governors in 142 years combined. The Cato Institute, is a libertarian organization. They're tough graders. They gave only 4 governors in the country an A. They're Louisiana and South Carolina and West Virginia and Minnesota. And I'm proud of that. I just want to share with you the minute I have left. This won't be easy, but working in the mills, as Ovid's relatives did, wasn't easy. Working in the meatpacking plants like many in my hometown did, or driving a truck like my dad did, wasn't easy. And of course, when you see those big plants shut down in Manchester or South St. Paul, and the faces of unemployment in your community and the disruption that causes in your family and your community, you see things not as a budget number, but as a matter of the heart, and as a matter of a family, and as a matter of a broken future. So my mom died when I was 16. My dad lost his job for a while, not too much after that. So when you're young and your mom passes and your dad's unemployed, you learn some things about hard work and individual responsibility and health and faith and family and love. But we also know that in America, we're strong people. And I bet you with Ovid's relatives, they always saw a brighter future. I see a brighter future for our nation. That's why I'm running for president. Considering running for president. formally and finally announced later. But we'll just say this. That is the secret of this country. We are a hopeful, can-do, optimistic, let's get it done group of people. We're not about thinking China's going to lead the world or we're going to be in second or third or fourth place. America's place is to lead the world in everything. Now let's go do it and take back our country.
The federal outlays were at $1.8 trillion. Today, they're more than double that. What are some of the specific policies that you would pursue to get this spending imbalance under control? And wouldn't it have to include entitlement reform of some sort, especially with Medicare?
Sure, that's the real question. Of course, if you look at the federal outlays of about $3.7 trillion, the pie chart of federal spending, looking at the red part of the pie chart being the mandatory or autopilot spending, it's Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, interest on the national debt. That red part of the pie chart is already over the halfway line, and at the rate at which it's growing, it's soon going to be over the three-quarter line. And most of the rest of the pie chart, the blue part, is defense. So if you believe what I believe about defense, which is we shouldn't cut it, now there's some efficiencies we can have and redeploy it back into defense, then the real answer to the problem, to the challenge, lies in the red part of the pie chart. And the bulk of that, of course, is the entitlement programs. I believe we need to look the American people in the eye and tell them the truth. Speak plainly and simply and boldly and courageously about the challenges that we're in. Don't scare them and freak them out, but show them the solutions and the way forward. So here's what I propose. In Social Security, it's time to say to the American people for newer entrants into the program, because life expectancies are increasing, we're going to gradually increase the retirement age over time for new entrants into Social Security. We have to do it, and I think if we can get the bulk of America to agree to that. Secondly, I don't like means testing as a philosophical matter, but given the choices that we have in front of us, I think we have to do at least this. As it relates to the cost of living adjustment in Social Security, not the whole program, just the cost of living adjustment, it's time we look the American people in the eye and say, if you're wealthy, you're not going to get as big of a cost of living adjustment as if you're middle income or lower income. Those two things will send a powerful signal to the world, to the markets, to our country that we can solve our problems and get these programs back on track. And I believe we can get a majority of the country to embrace that. On Medicare and Medicaid, I believe we should do what Paul Ryan has suggested on Medicaid, cap it at a level that we can afford, block grant the whole thing to the laboratories of democracy, to the states. Medicare is a longer answer, but two things to note in particular amongst many things that need to be done. One is we can't have a 1950 system that pays providers based on historical costs without regard to results or quality, so we have to align the money to the results that we want. And two, we have to have people have some skin in the game in terms of being in charge of their own health care, being in charge of making choices for what's best for them and their family, not having a centralized system run out of Washington, D.C. with limited or no choices, top-down command and control, inefficient, and really financially insolvent.
And the last point, thank you, Governor. Governor, as you may know, New Hampshire's House recently passed legislation that would allow New Hampshire to pull out of the RGGI system, which is a cap-and-trade style energy. As Governor of Minnesota, you supported something that was similar in the early 2000s, I think, on this issue. Have you changed your views and approach to this issue, and if so, how?
Yes. A couple of years ago, after considering cap and trade in Minnesota or regionally, and considering it, I changed my position and said it was a mistake, it was stupid, and I'm sorry. It is ham-fisted, and this is a couple, I think probably 2 or 3 years ago, in a letter and other communications to the Congress, said, look, I no longer have that position. It will be detrimental to the economy, destructive to the economy, ham-fisted, it's wrongly directed, wrong directionally, wrong philosophically. So I don't try to defend it. Everybody's got a couple of clunkers in their record. I just say, that's one of mine. I'm sorry, it was a mistake. It was dumb. All right, thank you.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.